صباح السلام، صباح الخيرات. صباح الخير.
Sorry.
كيف الأحوال؟
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. And how are you? And we're very grateful to have the opportunity to speak
جدا
with you.
لفرصة اللقاء هذه.
يا مرحبا.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you. It's been many years since America.
هو لقاء.
احنا من عادتنا قليلين لقاء مع الصحفيين وهذا عيب.
I'm not in the habit of giving too many interviews to journalists, and this is a weakness.
It is. Many American politicians wish they could have such a weakness.
الكثير من السياسيين الأمريكان يتمنون لو عندهم هيك عيب أو ضعف.
In fact,
ربما هم يتمنون لكن الإعلام ما يخليهم
Maybe they have such a wish,
يتمتعون بالحرية الشخصية.
but your own press, your own media would not allow them to have their individual freedom. They are
وين ما يطلعون
under constant watch.
أمامهم الإعلام.
Whenever they are there, they find the press, they find themselves confronted by the press.
وهذا أعتقد
And this, I believe,
تحول المسؤولين إلى
turns
أقرب إلى الممثلين من أن يقرروا الأمور معزل عن الأضواء.
and this, I believe, has the effect of turning politicians or officials more into actors than into decision makers, those who make decisions in an objective atmosphere and the right atmosphere.
يعني مثلا
For instance,
أفضل إنه لو في إحدى زيارات يصادف إنه شفناكم وتشوفون الحال كما هي أفضل مما
I prefer that
نقعد في استوديو نرتب الأمور مسبقا.
I personally would have preferred that we have this meeting on a sort of spontaneous level, as I'm going on one of my tours in the country in a visit, and then you meet me there. And this would have been a much more relaxed atmosphere than preparing all this setup and all the studio for this meeting.
yes. Perhaps movie stars earn their money by sitting with all the lights and the cameras.
نجوم السينما يربحون كل هاي الفلوس من خلال هاي الأضواء والكاميرات اللي
When is,
في هاي الحياة.
That's life.
when is your tour?
شو وقت ممكن تكون عندكم زيارة؟
يعني الزيارات كذلك زياراتنا تختلف عن الآخرين.
Our visits our tours also are different from the tours that other politicians may make.
نحن متعودون أن نزور باللحظة.
We are in the habit of making tours on the spur of the moment, just like that.
لكي نرى الأمور كما هي.
So that we see things as they exactly are in daily life.
سابقا عندما كنا طلاب ابتدائية في المدارس.
In the past, when I was a primary school pupil,
نحن نعرف مدير الناحية متى يزور.
we usually knew when the municipal director would come
المكان الذي نحن فيه أو
to the place in which we were staying,
أو القائم المقام.
or maybe the head of the administrative quarter or area, district.
ولكننا رأينا الملك صدفة مرة واحدة.
But we saw the king by chance just once.
And you remember seeing him?
وتتذكر المشهد. Yes, I remember
فكانت قبل زيارة أي مسؤول الشوارع يبدون يهتمون فيها.
So in those days, before an official comes, they usually prepare the streets, they clean them,
يدعون بعض الطلاب إنه ينظفون ثيابهم.
and they would call on pupils to wear cleaner clothes than usual.
فعندما يأتي المسؤول لا يرى الحال.
So when the official comes around, he doesn't see the true situation or facts as they are.
وعندما يرى حالة قد أعد لها
He would see
جزء من حياة الشعب.
a picture that had been prepared beforehand, which would represent the life of that area for just part of a day or at the most a whole day.
لكن عندما يأتي المسؤول يرى الحال كما هو.
But when the official comes to the place to see things as they exactly are, as they actually are,
يستفيد كثيرا.
then he would learn a great deal about how things were going in making his conclusions, the right conclusions.
But isn't it very difficult for leaders all over the world
ولكن أليس من الصعب على القادة في
true picture of
العالم أجمع أن يطلعوا على الصورة الحقيقية كما هي؟
Isn't it one of the greatest difficulties?
أليست هذه واحدة من أصعب المهام على القادة؟
تمام.
Yes, that's true.
ولذلك ليس باستطاعة أي أحد.
Hence you see that nobody can really do that
كما يقوم بها آخر وثالث ورابع.
in the same way as another would or a third one would. Each would see it each one would do it in his own different way.
ثم أنها بحاجة إلى شروط كثيرة.
And of course you need many various conditions for this picture to be perfected or to be known.
من بينها طبيعة النظام.
Amongst these conditions would be the nature of the system of government
ومستوى التطور.
and the level of advancement or development.
نمط العلاقات الاجتماعية.
The type of relations prevailing, social relationships.
وأمور أخرى.
And other requirements.
هي متعبة ليست.
It is not an easy job. It's a demanding task.
خاصة زيارة الريف.
Especially the visits one has to make to the countryside.
Was life very difficult in Tikrit when you were growing up?
هل كانت الحياة صعبة جدا في تكريت عندما نشأتم؟
في كل العراق صعب.
In the whole of Iraq, all of Iraq it was difficult.
عندما نشأنا الذين يلبسون الحذاء.
When I was growing, those who wore shoes were in a minority.
في الغالب يلبس في المناسبات.
And invariably you would wear your shoes only on occasions.
وبعض الفلاحين عندما
And some other people working on the farms
يذهب ليحضر مناسبة يستوجب أن يكون لابس.
Who had to go to say celebrate an occasion to a neighbor or something, in which he had to wear shoes.
يشيل تحت باطه.
He would carry the shoes under his shoulder so that the shoulders wouldn't get dirty or get used up, worn out.
Do you remember?
إذن هم لا يلبسون ليحموا أقدامهم.
So in those days they didn't wear shoes to protect their feet against whatever might hurt their feet on the floor.
إنما فقط ليظهر في اللحظة دي.
But only to show
مكتمل القيادة.
that they are well dressed up on a certain occasion.
لأنه إذا ما تمزق الحذاء.
Because once those pair of shoes were torn or worn out,
إنه لا يستطيع أن يعوضه بسهولة.
it would be very difficult for the person or for the individual to have a replacement.
Do you remember your first pair of shoes?
تتذكر أول زوج حذاء سيد الرئيس؟
أنا منذ كنت صغير في السن كنت ألبس حذاء.
Since my early childhood, I wore shoes.
لأنه أنا ولدت في مدينة تكريت.
Because I was born in the city or township of Tikrit.
وعندما ولدت كان والدي قد توفى قبل الولادة.
And by the time I was born, my father had died before birth.
والدتي كانت في بيت جدي.
And my mother used to live with my grandfather.
وخالي اللي هو أبو عدنان.
And my cousin, who is the father of the late martyr Adnan, the defense minister, our late soldier, and who was also the father of my wife, my father-in-law. Actually, I said my uncle was also in the army. My uncle, not my cousin. He was in the army. He was an officer in the army. And in those days, an officer was, by comparison to how things were socially, in good stead, in a reasonably good stead. So I was lucky enough to wear good clothes.
Did people blame the British?
هل كان الناس يلومون البريطانيين حول هذه الحالة؟
كان بعض الواعين يعرفون بأننا
Some of those,
بلد غني ولكن خيراتنا تذهب إلى الخارج.
some of the enlightened or aware people knew that we were a rich country, but our resources were being taken by others.
ومنهم خالد.
And one of such people was my uncle, my father-in-law,
I read in a book that
الذي سجن 5 سنوات.
who was put in prison for 5 years
وطرد من الجيش بسبب موقفه من الإنجليز.
and was dismissed from the service, military service, as an officer because of the position he had taken against the British.
did that begin your anger?
هل هذا بدأ غضبكم على الإنجليز؟
كان إعدادنا الوطني جيد.
We were well prepared, nationally speaking, in our national feeling, well brought up.
أجدادنا
Our forefathers,
اصطدموا مع الحكم العثماني.
our grandfathers had their clashes with the Ottoman regime, with the Ottoman rule.
وقتل منهم.
And
استشهد منهم.
some of them were martyred, were killed by the Ottomans.
أخوة جدي لأم اثنين.
2 brothers of my grandfather from my mother were killed.
وجد أمي.
And my mother's grandfather was also martyred.
Was there a moment at which you decided to become a revolutionary?
هل كانت هناك لحظة قررت فيها أن تصبح ثوري؟
الإعداد متدرج ولكن طبعا.
I was gradually
حزب كان
prepared to become a revolutionary. But naturally the party was the decisive factor into making me a revolutionary.
فترة طويلة ويحكون أهلنا.
That's for a long time now, and that's a long time ago now. And our fathers do tell us about
عن النماذج الوطنية.
and about the examples, the nationalist examples, or the patriotic examples,
وعن ظلم المحتل.
and about the injustices that used to be imposed by the occupiers of the country,
وظلم الحكم العثماني.
and the injustice of the Ottoman rule.
والظلم الذي وقع على سيدنا الحسين.
And also they used to tell us about the injustice that was done to Imam al-Hussein, Sayyidina al-Hussein.
كل هذا إعداد.
All this was preparing us.
كنا نسمع من كان عمرنا 4
And
سنوات.
we had begun hearing all about this since the age of 4.
لكن في عام أواخر 56 كان.
But late in 1956,
موقف آخر.
there was another position.